Welcome back to Real Talk with Chuck and Pam. We are here to do a little mini recap from last week and then touch upon a movie that just is going wide this week for most of us who don't live in LA and New York or Chicago. And then one that is hitting the screens and may just save cinema once again. I'd love to start with a recap from last week, and it's just one that we took the time to see, and I so regret taking my time to see it. So I would love to be able to warn people to not waste their time. And that movie is Hurry Up Tomorrow. It should have been Hurry Up and End.
Yes, yes.
I need this to be over. Okay, so it stars The Weeknd. Sorry, I shortened his name even further. The Weeknd. Although, if you look at it, and being a speech path or a former speech path that I was, I look at that and I don't see the weekend, I see the weekend. So it could go either way, but I think it's supposed to be the weekend. I had never heard of the guy. You know how I am with music. I'm clueless. So this is some music persona, I'm going to call him. Is that right?
I don't know. I do know he did the Super Bowl, I think.
Yeah, that's what Chris told me too. I'm like, oh, and then Kristen said that too. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I still don't know because I generally don't watch the Super Bowl and I usually don't like the halftime shows. So
I
there's
think I know two of the guy's songs.
okay. All right. So anyway, it's written and directed, or it's written and directed by Trey Edward Schultz, who I believe was in Chicago for one of his movies. I don't remember which one it was. Um, but he must be a fan of music and he must be a fan of this total auditory and visual onslaught. So much that I truly was on the verge of a migraine. It's about this guy, The Weeknd, who's this big idol. I kind of feel like he thinks it's like autobiographical, maybe.
Very much, yeah.
And he's having a bit of a meltdown with his performance. His voice hurts. He goes in and he has this laryngoscopy that shows that he's got a strain in his vocal folds. And you got to remember, I was his former speech path, so I'm going to say those words. And he's supposed to take it easy, but his manager, Lee, played by Barry Keegan, says, no, 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 you got to give the people what they want and we got to keep going on. And they're snorting coke, they're, doing all sorts of shit and higher than a kite. And he pumps them up and he goes out on stage and he's having this epiphany and he locks eyes with Anima is her name, not Enema. Do not confuse that is Anima. And that is played
I would
by,
have liked the film more if her name was
I know,
Elma.
right? I
Yeah.
felt like I had one by the time I left.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that is played by Jenna Ortega. Not even she could find a way to save this film. As I said before, it is just an onslaught of visual bombardment, auditory bombardment. It is filled with The Weeknd's face in every single scene. It is very self-important, and I was bored to tears. I really can't tell you a whole lot more than that, other than they met. He escapes his horrible existence of performing, and they run through the streets of, I think it's supposed to be New York, run through the streets of New York, and they ride a carousel, and they play skee ball, or I don't know, they do other like carnival-y kind of stuff that they find somehow through the city that never sleeps, and then they end up hooking up in a hotel. Meanwhile, Lee, the publicist, is chasing them, trying to find him so that he doesn't do anything stupid. Well, he does something stupid, and this turns into a little bit of a Stephen King Misery kind of situation, and we see Anima's true colors. Um, I don't know. Did this have the basis of being something interesting? No, because they didn't develop any stories. They didn't develop any characters. They didn't give us any background. I couldn't give a shit about either of the characters. So skip it. There's my review. Skip it. What do you think, Chuck?
It's art, Pam.
Oh, I'm
You're not
sorry.
supposed to understand it.
Oh,
It's
okay. All
art.
right. You know what? It
Come,
was just such highfalutin art that I couldn't grasp it.
keep coming from a deeply personal space.
This
Yeah,
is
it's been a while since I've seen any a vanity project like this.
wow.
It
This is
is
a
really.
narcissistic project, not just
Mhm.
vanity.
self-indulgent. And, I don't mind that if it's done well. This isn't, not at all. Not
No.
at all. Yeah, you're right. It was a headache. It was torture. It couldn't end quickly enough. So hopefully this thing's going to fade away quickly.
Yep. I hope so too. I hope it hurry ups and gets buried.
Mhm. Well,
And go ahead.
well, one that's not going to fade away quickly, of course, is Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, um, which comes out this Memorial Day. They're saying this could be the biggest Memorial Day weekend ever with
Really?
Mission Impossible and Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, so kids and everybody else.
Yeah, they're thinking those two combined are going to set records this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see.
Could very well be.
You and I think, wisely skipped the Lilo and the Stitch. Have no desire to see that thing. And Mission Impossible, it is what it is. Do you think this is it?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I think it's a way to maybe conclude from part one and then set it up for Tom Cruise to 2 years down the line say, I miss doing that stuff. I have a great idea. And then do another one. But it won't be a continuation of that one story. That's all. That's what I
Okay.
think.
All right. No, because the door is definitely open at the end of Final Reckoning, which I was a little disappointed with. I mean, because this has been set up as the last episode
Right.
Mission Impossible franchise. And the first 45 minutes of the film plays like a greatest hits album of the franchise. I mean, we get a lot of callbacks to various characters. We get a lot of flashbacks to the greatest stunts that have been done throughout the series. And it's pretty, yeah.
I have to, I just want to interrupt you. I don't like interrupting you, but I do have to interrupt you on that because you know all of the characters. You remember all of the movies, not only because you like this franchise more than I do, but because you, over the course of the last, what, 5, 6 days, watched all 7 of its predecessors.
Right, right.
I did not. And I
right.
still appreciated those flashbacks because when they introduced different characters and then flashed them back, I had an appreciation for who they were. So I was able to laugh along with the rest of the audience. In the very beginning, I was like, why is everyone going, oh? And then I realized why everyone went, oh.
Yeah, no, it's important. It's
Mhm.
necessary, especially, I mean, they're pulling things in from the first film, which was 30 years ago. So yeah, no, it's
I wasn't
necessary.
even born.
That's right. So you've had a lot of catching up to do.
I was busy pushing out kids. Yeah.
But blah, 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 blah. However, I will object to, and they do this a lot in the Mission Impossible films too, these big exposition dumps, where they tell us, okay, this is what's happened. This is what's happened, and this is what we need to do now. Okay, this is what's happened, and we need to do this again now. Again, I know it's part and parcel of the franchise,
It is.
but I thought in this one it happened way too much to the point to where I felt as though, what would you think I'm an idiot? And again, does it really matter? I mean, does it really matter what has happened and what's going to happen? Because all this is chasing the thing, you get the thing, you save the world. That's all the film is. That's all
That's
the movie's about.
and,
You know.
I reviewed this on Racine and Me. That'll come out on Sunday. And that's exactly what I said. I said, you have to get the thing, and the thing allows them to save the world.
That's it. Yeah,
It's the same thing.
my son was watching one of them with me, and he says, I can't figure out who's a good guy and who's a bad guy, and what everyone says, it doesn't matter.
Mm-mm,
You
at
know,
all.
these movies are all about the stunts. They're all about wowing us, which
Yes.
they've done consistently. I was shocked though that Final Reckoning, it doesn't have the same amount of stunts that the previous ones have. There's a lot of talking here. There's a lot of traveling here too.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you think that, no, there weren't as many individual stunts as you say, but the stunts that they did were more grandiose and took up more time, like the submarine that took up a lot of time. The biplane took up too much time, but the biplane, that was, God, probably 20 minutes.
Well, the submarine thing I didn't mind because I like that whole sequence. Ethan Hunt is stuck in a submarine that's on a undersea cliff that
Mm.
is rolling as he's inside. And as it's rolling, the torpedoes are falling on him. The water is filling up the chamber. I didn't mind that sequence, even though it is long, because it's steadily built.
Yes.
It, that it was okay. We're fine. We're fine. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh shit. It
Yeah.
was a really a great master class of steadily building this catastrophe. One thing led to another, and it all made sense. You know, sometimes these things come out of left field, the problem. All of this made sense though, and how he solves that problem, I thought was pretty ingenious. I didn't mind that one. The
It
byplay
was.
thing at the end is way too long.
It is.
God damn, you know, and I know it's spectacular. I mean, I think that of all the stunts that he's done, this one seems to have put him through his paces the most. I mean, you know, I was watching his skin be pulled back, you know, by the wind. I mean, I know there are safety harnesses and things. They've got to have that, which they digitally erase, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I could never do that. I get sweaty palms just talking about this, you know? I
I
can't
mean,
imagine doing what and he's a year older than me. He's 62 years old.
yeah, I mean, being out there and just doing that, even with the safety stuff, has got to be exhausting, strenuous, you know, unbelievable. I mean, and that's the great thing about these films. I mean, he always brings it. There's no
He
question.
does. Yep.
And
Yep.
and, and tip your hat to him. He always brings it. Um, I liked Final Reckoning. I didn't think it was great. Um, I think that they could have combined the last two into one really big epic, and it
Right.
would have been fine. I do love the call out. There's a character from the first episode. I love how he pops up again.
The scientist?
Yeah, the guy who was
Okay.
in the black box, where he in the first film where he drops down.
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
That
I
guy.
remember that, but I had an appreciation because of how they presented it. So that
Exactly.
did a masterful job of presenting information for everybody, not just fans of the franchise, but for everybody. And I appreciated that.
And I like the two messages in the film, you know, and Cruise goes back to this again and again in his films. Minority Report, Edge of Tomorrow, this whole notion of fate, you know, predetermination and you know, free will.
Right.
Because, you know, they keep saying throughout the movie, everything has led to this. And the entity, the AI thing, is basically saying you can't change anything,
Right.
and defy that throughout, that we do have control of our of what goes on. And also the message of, God damn it, we have got to get away from this fucking technology.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
killing us. You know, the film ends up being a plea for just simple human interaction.
Right.
And that's, you know, it can't be stated enough. So,
Well,
you know, a lot of these action movies are stupid. These at least usually have a message and a purpose to them, and I do appreciate that.
and I think Angela Bassett, who plays the president, and
Oh,
the
great job.
situation that she's
Oh,
in as the
yes.
president and trying to make the right decisions for the world, not just the United States, but the world, and the pressure that she has, and going with her instincts, her gut, and knowing what she's doing. I thought it was a wonderfully emotional performance, and
Yeah,
I
it was
was
really
right
great.
there with her as the wheels were turning, and you could just see her thinking about the ethics of morals, who she is and how she will look back on the decisions that she makes if she stays alive.
Right. But I have to say, the solution to that was pretty, I mean, give me a break.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. That's okay. But that's what these movies are.
You
But
know, you
she,
got all the greatest minds in the world surrounding her, and nobody came up with it.
I know, I know. But you also have, and look at our political world today. You've got all these assholes that are just looking out for themselves and nothing else. And we saw that in the Situation Room, you know?
To a degree, we did, yeah.
Yeah. And the other person that I think really brought heart and soul to it is Ving Rhames, who plays Luther. Has he
Right.
been in all of the movies? I don't know.
He has been to a certain extent. One of them, he just has a cameo scene. But yeah,
Okay.
he's the through line, as is Simon Pegg.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh, he's been in all of them too.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, I didn't
yeah.
know that.
It's interesting. He must have gone on a crash diet after the first one. Go back and watch the first one. You see Simon Pegg. He's not fat, but he's
Pudgy.
much heavier than he is now. And it's weird to see changed. And if you ever thought Tom Cruise hasn't had work done, watch this movie. It's obviously he's had work done because Rames and Peg, they've aged. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
question. And
And
then you
that's
look at him and I'm
okay.
like, wait a second here.
Well, and Simon Pegg was in a fun movie. I don't know what year it was called Run, Fat Boy, Run. Remember that?
I think it was after the first Mission Impossible film because he
Okay.
started to look different after that. Yeah, I remember that film. I like that movie.
I did too. I did too. And that's the first time I had ever heard of Simon Pegg. And everything that he's been in, he calls my attention. Now, Simon Pegg, from my recollection, which is just number seven, I can't remember the rest of them, but he added levity. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
good. Simon Pegg is on in the screen in this scene, and I'm gonna laugh. And that wasn't in this movie. I didn't laugh as much.
No, it's not as much fun. But I think the other thing that makes these movies so enjoyable are the characters.
Yeah,
You do get attached to them. There is that humanity that they bring to them, this interaction that they have. I love that Hunt's Achilles heel is the fact that he cares about these people.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
that's the thing that bad guys get him on. And it's like, well, he wouldn't be the guy that we root for if he didn't care about these people.
Exactly.
You
So
know?
I highly recommend going to see it. It is almost 3 hours long, but as I said to you and to Alex, the publicist, it is the quickest 3 hour movie I've ever been to. It did hold my attention, which you know me, you put me in a Barcalounger and recline me in an action movie, and I typically go to
That's
sleep.
that's a big endorsement from Pam Powell.
It
It is.
is, truly is. Now, the other movie that I want to talk about, and I want to compare a movie that we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, is Friendship. And Friendship stars Tim Robinson, who looked familiar to me, but I couldn't place where I had seen him before. And then Kristen, who is my encyclopedia of all things movie, was like telling me about Saturday Night Live. He was an actor in that, and then he got, or maybe it was Kelsey's boyfriend Lucas was saying that he got fired or demoted, and then he became a writer, and then he's kind of got this odd sense of humor, and with humor, and I think you and I agree. You know, the same kinds of things with drama touch our hearts. We're not very different with that, but when it comes to humor, there are like 10 different types of humor, and we don't share the same sense of humor except for dark sense of humor, but yours goes a little darker than mine does.
I agree. Yes.
So anyway, so this is about a guy named Craig, and Craig's a loser, let's face it. He's a loser. He's married to this beautiful wife, Kate Mara. And I'm guessing he's a stepdad. They never said that, but I'm guessing he's the stepdad of this boy. Does that be right, Stephen?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So you get that hint right away that he's out there, he's odd, he's his own worst enemy. And this guy moves in next door, and this guy is Austin, the local television weatherman. And it's played by Paul Rudd. Well, he's hip and he's cool, and he's actually got a kind heart. And when his package is delivered to Craig's house, Craig goes over and delivers it, and Craig tries to take him under his wing and say, "Hey, buddy, come on over. We'll hang out. We'll get to know each other." And Craig takes him up on it, but as I said before, Craig is his own worst enemy, and Craig doesn't quite understand how to be a friend. He wants to have a friend. He wants to have a BFF in the worst way, but every decision he makes is not the right one. Everything, and I'm closing my eyes as I'm saying this because everything is cringeworthy. And it's just like, wake up, dude. Come on. That's not how you act. Oh, don't climb the fence. Don't go in the house. Don't steal the gun. What are you thinking? I mean, it's one decision after another as his marriage falls apart, and his wife has an interesting relationship with her son. I'm not even going there. And I laughed in some parts, but it was odd. The other odd thing is I felt like I was back in 1970, but I wasn't, because they were talking about apps on iPhones, because that's what Craig did for a living. He even got picked on at work. So I felt like this was like a bully, and you're laughing. Um,
It's awful.
it was a bullying thing, and everything was just, he was set to fail. And I mean,
Oh,
yeah, I mean, we all know people like Craig, and I
yeah.
hope in my heart that I was Paul Rudd in the situation. I was Austin in the situation, that I treated people with kindness that I saw like that. Go ahead.
Right, right. But
Uh,
remember, the Paul Rudd character eventually turns on him as well.
well, he has to for his own preservation.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
I don't blame him at all. Oh my God. And then what he drags his wife through. I recommend going to see this. And what really, really sparked my interest in this is, we all focus, I think, more on when you're talking about guy relationships, especially movies that portray guy relationships, it's like The Hangover. It's like these buddy drinking movies that, they don't really delve into anything that's not superficial, I think. But then we usually see movies about women and how horrible we are to one another and how we don't lift each other up and how we're catty. We'll say, "Oh, I like your necklace." And then we turn to our friend, "Oh my God, isn't it horrible?" And those kinds of things portraying women as being very, very manipulative and catty. When in actuality, I think maybe there aren't that many differences between how men have their friendships and women have their friendships, and how we don't allow others into our inner circle, and how bullying. And we saw that I was trying to make the comparison of The Surfer with Nicolas Cage, and how he just wanted to belong to his old community. He felt like he should be there, but he was an outsider and he wasn't let in, and he was bullied to the extreme until the final act.
yeah,
So I find it interesting that men act like a pack of wolves sometimes, just the same way that women do. And
right.
I don't think we see that very often. It's unusual that I just saw two movies almost back to back that represent that. Tell me what you think. And that's my female perspective as a guy. Tell me about how you view male friendships and how this happens.
Well, this all pretty well rang true from what I've seen and experienced. And I think, you and I have talked about this, and I think that whether it's, a man or a woman, it's all about our insecurities and fears and the facade we put on, to hide that, and, for most men, it's bravado, it's machismo. And, you reference The Surfer, and I think that's exactly what's going on there. Uh, all the men in friendship are pretty immature as well.
You
I
think?
mean, yeah, I mean, and that's another good thing that they talk about there too. But no one's going to talk about it, but in that group, no one's going to admit it. No one's going to, and I think that's why they ostracize Craig, because he doesn't have that facade.
Right,
He
right.
is, he's exactly who they are afraid that they are.
Oh, good point.
He represents everything they're trying to hide. So they can't have him around.
Right.
You're not in on the lie here, buddy. You are the personification of all we're afraid of that
Huh.
we are. And so you can't be here. And I think that's really there's that great thing. I don't want to give anything away with the Paul Rudd thing, but he has a secret himself
Yes.
that Craig finds out about. And I really love that, how that comes into play in the final scene. That I thought
It's
was
it's
really
sad.
beautiful. It's sad, but in
It's
the end,
sweet too.
it's sweet too. Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's so cool about this movie, I think, is that it really walks that fine line between social commentary, behavioral commentary, I guess we should say, cringe comedy.
Yeah.
There is a sweetness to it because
Yes.
all these people are vulnerable.
Right.
All these people are vulnerable. And really, the strongest character in the film is the woman, is Kate Mara.
Right.
She ultimately is the one who figures out what she wants, and that's what she does.
Yep.
So good for her.
Yep. Yep.
But you're right. I think people should go see this because it's going to spark a lot of conversation afterwards.
Right.
They like what we've been doing as far as you getting insight onto the male frailty, fragility, and all the bullshit that we put out there as well.
Right. Right. It is interesting. And I do hope people go to see that. And I want them to be honest about what they feel when they see it, and then how you can relate that to your own relationships, male or female.
Yeah.
And I think when you're talking about male female relationships, that is a whole nother ball of wax. But guy friendships versus girl friendships is different. And it may not be, if you're listening to this, it may not be your style of humor. You'll find some funny parts in it. It's not going to be laugh out loud, ha ha, funny, funny, but it's still worth seeing because that was my take on it.
Yeah. Even if you don't get the humor, you'll relate to,
Yeah.
because like you say, we all know someone like this.
Oh, we do. We
Yeah, so-
absolutely do.
Well, next week, I am really looking forward to next week.
Why?
We're going to discuss a movie that I am stunned Pam Powell sat through. Pam Powell sat through this movie next to me, and I made sure that my legs were out of the way so that she could bolt at any time. And to her credit, she sat through Bring Her Back, a horror film that comes out on the 30th. And as much as I like horror films, this one bothered me too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got a lot to talk about with that.
Yes, we do. I will also key you into what my social worker friend said as I tried to tell her about the movie and why it disturbed me so, and she couldn't hear what I had to say. So
It
there's
disturbed
that.
me too. And like I say, I can take more than you can in this genre, but it bothered me too on a lot of levels. And in a sense, I guess we could say it worked. Talk about that. And maybe we'll talk about The Karate Kid too, because that comes out next week as well.
Very good. Thanks for listening to Real Talk with Chuck and Pam. You can check out our website, realtalkwithchuckandpam.com. That's REEL, talkwithchuckandpam.com. You can check us out on YouTube. Watch all of our segments on CBS 58 out of Milwaukee, as well as Racine and Me.